So I come just after a humorist, just before a rocket scientist. I'll try and make this one interesting. I don't know if it's on purpose. They put the roast in between Amazon and Microsoft. I don't know if you know, Chris, if there's a reason for that. So my name is Olivier. I'm part of the Azure IoT team. So we're a team at Microsoft that builds services, tools, platforms for the Internet of Things. I've been at Microsoft for, 12, 13 years. I know some of you guys. I used to be a developer in the embedded space before that, developing real-time systems. I was doing that in France, moved to the US to join Microsoft Corp, and I've been in the IoT world for as long as I can remember. You can find me on Twitter, pretty easy, Bloch, and that's where you're going to have tons of information about what we're doing, and also randomly my thoughts about IoT and other things. I want to introduce with that quote that you've all seen, which is on the event webpage. IoT is not a fairy tale, and it is really about hard work, persistence, and risk. It is hard. IoT today, as it is a technology that is not easy to implement. It offers huge opportunities, but it's not simple. I want to bring another quote that actually is very promising. Arthur Clarke is one of the co-writers of 2001, The Space Odyssey. So you certainly know the movie. The guy is very smart, innovator, inventor, and science fiction writer. And he said that any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic. And I like to think about technology as being a good technology when it becomes magics, when it becomes something that you don't really understand how that works. You don't need to because it just works, right? And this is where we want to bring IoT. We want to bring IoT to a place where it is a mature technology. It is used. It is easy to use for you guys who need that technology to implement your application and solutions. So keep that in mind, keep that quote in mind about where we want to go with IoT. So IoT is about things, insights, actions. This is a very simple view of it, and this is what you would expect from an IoT platform and IoT applications. They are about the things that produce data and eventually they can control. They're about the insights you extract from the data from these devices. And more importantly, even than that, these insights is what you're going to do with that insight. Actions. So if you think about IoT application, they should be exactly that. They should be fairly simple, and they should extract data, extract insights, and then allow you to take action. And all of that should be seamless. But at the end of the day, it's a bit more than just that. When you work or create an IoT application, you have to take into account all of these things on the screen. You need to think about security. You need to think about device management, high availability, and all these things. To make it actually even more daunting and scary, here is how an IoT application looks like. We at Microsoft are really good at this kind of slides. I hear some of my colleagues laughing here. So we are super good at creating these slides that are super complex and hard to understand. But actually, I want you to take a closer look at what's in there. We're talking about things, we're talking about insights, we're talking about actions. And these are the various components you're going to have to put together to create an IoT application end-to-end, from devices up to the cloud, back and forth. You need, on the things side of things, to consider your devices, running code, secure them, provision these devices at scale. Eventually, you will have devices that are a bit more intelligent than the basic ones, that run code that you can manage from the cloud. You need to connect these devices using some sort of a cloud gateway if you want to run your intelligence in the cloud. Or you need to have these edge devices to be able to actually get that intelligence and run it down there. Then once the data comes into the cloud, you need to think about data processing. How do you do real-time analytics in order to trigger alerts on specific rules? How do you transform the data to store it? What kind of storage do you use? Long-term storage, chip, or expensive but available storage? Then you need to think about how you're going to display that data for the user. By the way, you're going to need to think about how you're going to manage these users, authorize them to interact with the data, visualize, interact with the devices as well. And you're going to also have to think about how you interact with your line of business application. You have a device producing something as a data. The analytics determines there's an anomaly and something will fail. You need to have someone sent to the location of the device to fix it before it fails. So you need to think about integrating into your business logic. You also need to think about adding AI into your application. So all of that is super complex. But wait, there's more actually you need to think about. There is security. There is scaling. How do I go from 10 devices to 10,000 to 1 million? And then there is deployment, because you're going to have to manage that application from end to end, from devices up to the cloud. So you didn't stand up and run away, so you're basically interested in how we're going to help make it simpler for you to actually create your IoT applications. This is really the mission that we've set for ourselves at Microsoft in the Azure IoT group. Make IoT simple. Make it magic at the end of the day, right? So that you guys can just use it without realizing that you're using super powerful tools and technologies. In order to do that, we have tons of solutions. Solutions that span from the things to the insights to the actions. And they're actually coming in various forms. And the reason why we do that is because you and our customers have different types of needs. And they will want to have different types of solutions and tools and platforms. So it's really not to confuse you guys that we have that many different things next to each other that will allow you to create IoT applications. At the top level, we have what we like to call the managed solutions, software as a service. Turnkey solutions that don't require any coding, that will just work. For the IoT space, we have something called Azure IoT Central. I'm going to show you a couple of slides that actually, they didn't allow me to come with a laptop. I like to do demos. I have to do PowerPoint. That's OK. I will still put some demos in the PowerPoint. So IoT Central is, as you'll see, super simple to deploy, super simple to use. The idea is to have a running IoT solutions in a matter of minutes, if not seconds, and start connecting devices, managing these devices, displaying data, and so forth. When it comes to connecting to your line of business application, we have an option, which is called Dynamics 365 when it comes to line of business. That actually covers tons of applications. And one of them is called Connected Field Service. And that allows you to bridge the I world from the things world from the operational world. So basically, how do you operationalize your IoT data in your business? So these are really easy to use, easy to deploy, easy to maintain, and we take care of all the heavy lifting under the hoods. But if you want to have something a bit more controllable, customizable, changeable, we offer a set of platform-as-a-service solutions. And these ones are the building blocks of your solution. You will want to have something that is about connecting the devices. Remember that big architecture diagram. Your gateway in the cloud needs to be in that cloud, and it's called IoT Hub in our case. And then you have the various other bricks to do the transformation of your data, to do the analytics in real time, to do the storage. All these bricks are provided as very easy to deploy and manage and configure services in Azure. On top of that, we add templates, because aggregating these services might not always be as simple as you would think, especially if you're not coming from the development world or from the cloud world. All of these services, as was mentioned, accrue to these notions of devices, managing the devices, deploying to devices, to the insights, doing analytics in real time, doing analytics on cold data, and to the visualization and integration into line of business application. So that's what's going on in the cloud. We have all these options. We can go in details about all of them on our booth down there. What I want to do is actually move forward towards the things, towards the devices. And I want us to continue to start looking at how do we bridge that world of devices and connectivity like LoRa and the cloud, and the complexity of the cloud, simplified things to the Azure IoT services. And so we are working on the edge side of things to an extent that actually you might not be aware of. Because we're Microsoft, we're known for being enterprise company, cloud company. We do actually have lots of things happening on the edge as well, on devices. Some of them are related to running SDKs on all the platforms out there to connect to the Azure IoT Cloud. Other ones are about providing actual hardware and security technology. There's a new product called Azure Sphere that addresses the very secure devices needs that we have in our times today, and that actually we take care of all the way down to the design of the hardware. Very happy to talk about the options with my colleagues down on the booth there. So this is the wide offer that we have. I don't want to mention all the names. We were joking about the fact that I could have a sea of icons here with all the services. It would not be very useful for you. The idea is for you to take away is that we have tons of these services that address specific needs that you can aggregate to create your own IoT application. But I want you to take a look first at IoT Central, which is that turnkey, no-code solution. This one is super easy to deploy. You just have to go to the IoT Central website and start the deployment of a new application. You can start without an Azure subscription. You don't have to put in a credit card number or whatnot. You can create an app that will run for 7 days that will allow you to evaluate the product. IoT Central then is something you're going to pay as you go, as in you're going to pay for what you're using, how many devices you're connecting, and then the data you're transmitting to the cloud. It's free for up to 5 devices and a certain amount of messages. So if you have a very tiny project or you have a proof of concept you want to build, you can use Azure IoT Central for free. Once you've deployed your application, what you get is a solution that already has simulators for sending data, that has the ability for you to customize the UI, that has pretty much everything you need. You have a website with a domain name, and you can just start configuring the application. You don't code at all in the cloud when you're using Azure IoT Central. Zooming a little bit into what kind of things you'll be able to configure, you can configure users for the application. You can have different types of users. You can have an operator, you can have someone we call a builder that will actually organize the application, create new device models, and so forth. Talking about devices, you'll be able to define device models, meaning you can define what to expect from a device. Is the device sending temperature? What is the unit? Is the device sending an event? Is there a state I want to monitor, I want to synchronize with? You define what your device will be sending, and then when the application receives messages from the device, it will decrypt that message, that usually is a JSON format, and will display that data and make it available for the rest of the application. You can manage your devices from IoT Central in sets of devices. If you want to start deploying, a firmware update or a configuration on a set of devices of a specific type in a specific location, you can do that very easily in IoT Central. You can define jobs. Sometimes you want to do batches of configuration on devices, right? You don't want to update all the devices in your factory at the same time. You want to actually test on a set of devices and then continue your management jobs along the way. I was mentioning that everything is configurable. The full UI is configurable. It's a WYSIWYG experience. It's drag and drop. You need to be a builder to be able to do that, but very easily in the website, you're able to create your dashboards, create the user experience. But not everything stays in IoT Central. You sometimes have to have rich analytics or machine learning, or you want to export the data to other systems. IoT Central allows you to do that very simply as well. So everything in a box with one-click deploy with IoT Central, right? So simple enough, right? Okay, almost magic. We're getting there. If you attended or plan to attend the workshop that we're running, what you'll get to do is actually building an application like this one that allows to connect LoRa devices to Azure and retrieve the data into IoT Central, and then eventually establish some simple rules or more advanced rules to trigger actions. As you'll see, everything happens in that environment of IoT Central without needing any piece of code apart from the device side of things, and we'll talk about that. So this is simple enough, but what I want to bring up your attention to now is how do we connect that simple cloud world for IoT with the simplicity of connecting devices. It's not simple, we know that. However, there are solutions out there, like the Things Network, that make it a bit easier. Connecting a node to a LoRa infrastructure is made easier thanks to the Things Network, another solution of that kind. You don't have to think about all the details of the protocol. You don't have to think about retry logic. You don't have to think about all that is taken care of. You don't have to think about deployment. And you don't have to think either, well, you have to use the tools that are made available for you. So then you're thinking about LoRaWAN and the cloud. You have devices that talk to gateways that themselves talk to a hosted solution like the Things Network. But Things Network is limited in terms of what you can do. You cannot do rich analytics on the data. You have to export the data and then do something with it. So you need to consider the coding behind this hosted LoRaWAN application. What we're doing during the show at the workshop is we basically are launching an open source project that is called the Azure IoT Device Bridge. And that allows you to bridge these two worlds, the world of the easy, simply connected devices and the world of the simple cloud, but super powerful. Both sides, super powerful, super useful. So that bridge, being an open source project, is open for you guys to contribute. It allows us to connect different types of cloud networks. Today we have that connector working for Particle, for Sigfox, and for LoRa with the Things Network. That collection of connectors will extend, obviously, based on what people suggest, what we think is important, and so forth. So come and contribute to that project. You can find it on GitHub. So you go to that ak.ms URL, and you can start playing with us. Otherwise, attend the workshop tomorrow. Come talk to us on the booth down there, and we'll be happy to give you a demo and walk you through. Another way of connecting your LoRa application to the cloud and to Azure is to go down to the gateways. Run code on the gateways that will allow that connectivity directly to the Azure IoT infrastructure. So we have a technology called IoT Edge, very similar to the AWS Greengrass technology you heard before, running code on the device, in our case in the format of Docker containers. And that runtime, open source by the way, allows you to configure what kind of containers, what kind of workloads you want to run on that gateway. We happen to have an open source project, another one, which is about running modules, running containers on that IoT Edge device that will connect to a LoRaWAN device node, extract the data, convert it into a format that fits the need of Azure IoT, and then allows you to send that up to the cloud. But eventually allows also to run offline by running workloads of other types like machine learning, serverless functions and things like that, or your own code in a container on the IoT Edge devices on these gateways. So these are two different approaches, two different ways of integrating the world of LoRaWAN with Azure IoT. We have a nice demo on the booth about this IoT Edge integration. Let me show you a bit more about the details of that IoT Edge sample or project. I was mentioning the fact that IoT Edge is based on Docker containers. So these Docker containers are available in a catalog that you can go shop and find anything. Like you want to connect to a Modbus device, you want to connect to a CAN one, whatever. You go to the marketplace, look in the collection of the modules, pick one. If you're producing an IoT Edge device, meaning a gateway that can support IoT Edge, which by the way runs on Windows and Linux today, where you can run Docker, you can run IoT Edge, and you can produce your own modules, and you can push them onto the catalog of these modules. Eventually, you can make money as well, because there's a monetization model for you guys if you want to. So someone using that IoT Edge technology on the LoRa gateway can bring down a couple of modules. One will be the package forwarder, that actually is the one grabbing the packets from the LoRa hardware on that gateway, and then decodes that through a network server that runs the container once again. Eventually, you can decode that data locally. You can leverage, as I was mentioning, machine learning and other types of modules, and eventually send that up to the cloud for further processing, for reporting, for visualization, and so forth. The management of the keys to the LoRa devices and nodes actually is done as well in the cloud on top of the IoT Hub service. And so you can leverage an end-to-end solution that will work offline, leverage LoRa connection between nodes and gateway, and leverages the powers of the cloud of Azure behind IoT Hub. One thing I forgot to mention earlier on is types of devices and where you can actually find information. If you guys are building devices, building gateways, we do also have a catalog of certified devices for IoT Hub and for IoT Edge. If you have a LoRaWAN gateway, you want to certify it for IoT Edge, there's a process for that, there's a marketplace for it, and then you can basically certify these devices and showcase them. Well, we will showcase them for you. Last but not least, if you want to stay informed, and before I let you go, I want you to note these two websites. One is the IoT Show, where we run, a colleague of mine and myself, some videos for explaining IoT at Microsoft, giving you updates and engaging with you guys. The other one is the IoT School, which is a learning site for having more information, for going through learning path, to learn about all these technologies we have in the cloud to make them even easier for you to use. You can find us on GitHub as well. So, before jumping into some question, I want to bring back that quote, which is, any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic. So we want IoT to get there. We want IoT to become magic. So I want to coin a quote myself that maybe in 10 years from now someone will use. I don't know. Take a good note of that. I say that. Let's make magic together, advancing IoT technologies, both on the device and connectivity side of things and on the cloud. If you have any questions, I'll be very happy to answer. Otherwise, you can find me on the booth down there or during the workshop tomorrow.